Episode 008, Jess Silk. Jess Silk is a singer-songwriter out of the UK. She's one of my favorite up-and-coming acts, and I'm not alone there. In just a few short years, she's gained a loyal and growing following, and it's obvious she's just getting started. We talk about US-UK politics, black cats, the effect Brexit has had on touring performers, and the legendary Italian anti-fascist hymn, Bella Ciao, a song I've recently reconnected with, thanks to Jess's incredible take on it. We talk about these things because they're all topics in her music. Please welcome to the show, Jess Silk. So, Jess, thank you so much for being here. Did you just go by like Jess, or is it like, do people usually just say your full name? Like, do they just say Jess Silk, or what's like the typical?
I'm happy with Jess. Jess works.
So I got into you via Attila the Stockbroker. I think it was on his Facebook Live, he was featuring different artists and he featured you. And it was one of those things like by the first line, I was like, oh, I'm hooked. I got to find all of her music. Like I really dig your sound a lot, and I love your lyrics, and I like your stuff. So how did you just sort of get into music, and then how did you find Attila? Like kind of give me the history there.
Well, I mean, I started playing guitar when I was 8, so that's nearly 20 years now, which is a bit scary. But yeah, I've always loved to sing, and I've always loved to write music. I like writing stuff that means something, and like you listen to the charts and it's just like there's nothing on there that applies to me at all. So I like music with a bit of bite to it, I suppose. And yeah, I think I first met John when he was playing at my local venue, Katie Fitzgerald's in Stourbridge. I got chatting to him. I don't know when he first saw me play. I might have been supporting him. It's been a while. But immediately said, right, I want to put her on at my festival. I was like, excellent. I'll take that. But he's always been really, really supportive of me, which is lovely.
So are you, and this is kind of my geographical ignorance when it comes to England. Are you both from the same town then, you and him, or
no,
where?
Not okay. Even remotely.
Okay.
John lives on the south coast, and I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, just west of Birmingham.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know like all the. I mean, I just know the like London, Birmingham, Manchester, and then I get a little foggy.
Yeah.
So one of your songs is about what happened on January 6th here in the United States. So I kind of wanted to just get your take on, you deal with politics a lot in your music. What's kind of your take on what's going on here in the US right now?
Yeah, at the moment, it kind of seems like the UK and America are just constantly trying to one-up each other on how bad it can get. But I mean, that song was... it was kind of me trying to write about what I was looking at from kind of an outside perspective, seeing all this footage on I mean, I don't really watch the news, but like shared online. It's like, wow, this is actually happening. And that's what inspired me to write that.
Was that your reaction? Like just kind of this is happening, or was it surprising? I mean, it's just curious to me, like what, like a non-American perspective is.
It's kind of like the last few years. It just seems to have turned into this dystopian nightmare. Like everything, just one thing after another, and it's just mad. So I don't think anything surprises me anymore. But like looking back 4 or 5 years, well, longer than that, when Trump got in, it was just like, what is going on?
Yeah, I mean that's very very accurate to my sentiments as well. Like I mean, Trump got in, and so much of the country was really shocked by it. I wasn't, just because I saw things brewing. Like I saw what was kind of brewing in the underbelly in this country, And I kind of saw, I mean, I supported Bernie Sanders both times in 2016 and in 2020. And you kind of saw what happened to him and just the momentum that was lost when what happened in the primary happened. And Trump, on the other hand, had this very excited base that they took a chance. I mean, they thought Bush was something good, and then Bush just decimated their freaking lives. And then they thought Obama was going to be something different, and he governed like Reagan. So they're kind of like, well, I guess progressive ideas suck, even though there was really nothing progressive that happened during those 8 years. But a lot of Americans were just like, well, where do we go now? And you have this Trump guy who was selling this fake populist snake oil, and people were just buying it. And it was happening. And my friends and family told me I was crazy when I'm like, he's going to win. And it's going to be, and it's been like yourself. I've stopped wondering where the floor's at, because every day I wake up and I'm like, oh, well, we're not there yet.
I think it was just that, like, with looking at it, for people who don't look at politics that much, they might go and vote, but they don't get really deep into it. It was surprising how prevalent the right wing is, and Trump just seemed to make them all come out of the woodwork. That was like looking at, well, but it's gone the same way in the UK as well. Like, I don't think I was paying enough attention, because it's always been there, but maybe wouldn't notice it. But then you have all the newsreel footage, and it's centre of attention. Like, it is actually this bad, and it's scary.
Well, did Boris Johnson really excite a lot of people, or was he just sort of, because he just strikes me as like, just no, I mean, obviously, like, I'm completely opposed to his politics, but even just on like the surface level, like, he just strikes me as being the opposite of charismatic.
And I think I never use that word, but buffoon is the correct word for Boris Johnson. But then there were people being interviewed, and they were asking them, well, why did you vote for him? Oh, I thought it'd be funny. I thought it'd be a laugh.
I thought it'd be funny.
People's lives you're playing with, and you thought it'd be a laugh. Oh, okay. Wow.
Well, so let's go over to your side then, like your shores. And I've asked a couple different performers this, and how, I mean, I want to talk about Brexit in general, but also I want to start from like the practical sense. As a touring performer, are you not able to go to the EU now without a visa? Like how does that work exactly? Because I know there's been debates about this, and they're trying to work it out. But as someone who's not like there often, like I'm just curious how that works on the day-to-day right now.
I mean, I think you can get away as a solo artist. I think you can get away without doing a lot of that.
Okay.
There's still paperwork, but if you're following the letter of the law, then yeah, you need visas, and you need all of this, all carnets and whatever to take your instruments over, and all your merchandise. And like, I've had stuff that I've sent to people in the EU, and they've encountered massive customs charges at the other end. So it's just been a bit of a nightmare, really.
That's nuts. So if you, like, let's say somebody in Paris buys a Jess Silk album or T-shirt, like, you're getting slammed with these fees, or they're getting slammed with these fees.
Yeah, and if I'm using the post office, they don't let you pay them this end either. So the post has just gone up, and you have to fill in like ridiculous customs forms, and even the people at the post office don't really know what you're supposed to do to fill them in, because they don't make sense. And then it's only really Germany and I think Norway that I've had problems with. The rest of them seem to have gone through all right, but it's just it's whoever's checking the mail the other end, really, I think.
That's so interesting, because I mean, I've been following the whole thing a little bit from afar, the best I can, and I know like there was that didn't they have a big concert about that? Like Elton John performed or whatever, like for the artist. You know what I'm referring to, or is that
Was
not
that
ringing?
like a music venue trust thing, or
I
I don't
thought
know.
it was. I thought it was for that cause. Like they were saying that there should be a visa-free relationship between the
Oh yeah,
EU.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so it seemed to me like and again I was just like kind of following stuff on the BBC the best I could. So I'm sure there was like a ton of details I wasn't abreast to, but it seemed like the UK was just sort of blaming the EU, and the EU was just sort of blaming the UK, and neither side wanted to kind of take the blame for this,
Yeah.
and live performers were getting screwed over in both cases.
The way I understand it, it's but it would all be fine if our government would agree. If people from the UK can go and tour in the EU, then the EU obviously want to be able to send musicians over here. But from how I understand it, our government won't agree to that. I really don't get it, because music is like one of our biggest exports. And
yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was. I mean, and as a live performer based in the States, like I was kind of looking at that, and I'm like, that'd be like the equivalent if all of a sudden I needed a permit to go to Nevada or something. Like it's because it's like it's all right there, you know, and so yeah. I mean, I hope they make some kind of arrangement, but it seems like they're not like they're just kind of letting it happen, and they're not really doing anything to fix it.
I'm a member of the Musicians Union, and they are trying to sort something out, but it's looking like it's going to have to be an agreement between each individual member, like country of the EU. We're going to have a separate agreement for all of them.
Wow. Okay.
But obviously, hopefully, there's going to be like tying all of them in a single agreement. But everyone wants different things, and it's just a nightmare.
Well, they gotta get 28 union members to just like be ambassadors. It's like, all right, we got 28 countries. We need 28 agreements. Jess, pick your country. What do you want? You want Spain? You want France? You want Italy? What do you want? That's wow. Well, yeah, I hope they figure that out. Well, so Brexit in general, like, give me your kind of just overall take on that, because I know there's. I mean, I've heard like just the basic nuts and bolts of it, but I don't know like all like the ins and outs and the nitty gritty and where some people like why some people are where they are on that issue. So as an outsider, like kind of break that down for me.
I don't even really know anymore, to be honest. Really? Like they had this massive bus that went round, like advertising Brexit, and it was what £350 million for the NHS. I don't know whether it was per month or whatever, and that seemed to be their big slogan. And obviously that hasn't delivered because the NHS is collapsing. And there's a lot of people seem to think that it was going to be this wonderful, wonderful thing, and I did sincerely hope that I would be proved wrong, but I have not seen one single benefit.
So they were making promises. They were saying that the NHS was going to get better if Brexit happened.
Yeah, and all they've done is keep privatising bits of it. And
well, I can tell you don't do that.
No.
I know you don't need to hear it from me, but don't do it.
But yeah. And like all the nurses are on strike, I think, still at the moment. Junior doctors have been on strike because of pay deals and the stupid conditions of their work they have to put up with. It doesn't seem to be getting any better, but the government just won't listen.
Well, how common is it? Like, because I know like privatization is, rearing its head, not just in England, but in other parts of the world. And, the United States is the biggest warning to never do that when it comes to healthcare. The situation we have here is absolutely abysmal. And how commonplace is that? Just like, people you might encounter on the street, like where are they concerned? Like, oh man, we're going the way of the United States. This could be really bad. Or are some people for it?
Some people are, but it seems to be going more and more the other way. More and more people are being plunged into poverty, and they might have voted for Brexit, and all of a sudden, like, oh, this was actually a really, really bad idea because it's affecting me now. Because there was, well, still is the "I'm all right, Jack" attitude. It's happening somewhere else. It's happening to somebody else, so it doesn't matter. But now it's starting to affect more and more people. I think more and more people are changing their minds. But obviously they're so stubborn, they won't tell you that.
Well, what was the rationale? Like, how did they sell that to the public? Like, oh, if we do Brexit, the NHS will get better. Like, what was was it because like they would just focus only on the pound, or like what was the rationale there? Like, I don't get how they tried to sell that.
A lot of it was based on immigration.
Okay.
Which obviously Brexit hasn't fixed. Well, like my granddad's generation, they were like, well, we were all right before we went into the EU. To which my argument was, you were still on rationing before we went in the EU after the Second World War. And some people looked a bit deeper into it, like the EU enforcing laws that we have to put up with, like the human rights law, which, yeah, now that's all up in the air, and right to protest, and it all seems to be going down the pan a bit.
Yeah, sounds familiar. It's same things going on here. So where do you think things kind of went sideways? Because a lot of times, we had our Bernie Sanders, and the parallel y'all had was Jeremy Corbyn. And, I've seen you in various Jeremy Corbyn apparel. And so where did things go sideways there for him?
I think the Labour Party just absolutely crucified him. That was the first time in my life that I'd ever had real hope for politics and for the left way of thinking. But the Labour Party definitely didn't, and still seemingly don't want that. They want another Tony Blair in charge, which admittedly is probably better than what we've got now, but there was a definite alternative, and that gave a lot of people hope, and then that was quashed quite considerably. And
yeah, I mean, so it's the exact same thing that happened here with Bernie, and like yourself. I mean, for me personally, when Bernie happened, it was, I think for a lot of Americans, myself being among them, like I've been left pretty much as long as I've been paying attention to politics. I got radicalized in college because of the Iraq War, because I didn't know why we were over there and we shouldn't have been. And then, I was kind of off to the races with all that. And so I kind of just realized I live in a country that is nowhere close to those values, like nowhere freaking close at all. And then Bernie came along and made people who think the way I do realize we weren't as alone as we thought we were. We're still probably the smallest group politically in the country, but we're not quite as alone as we thought. And then, and then we kind of saw what happened. But I guess I'm curious about, like, how exactly did Labor really crush Corbyn? Because, like, in our Democratic Party, we have all these ridiculous rules in place, like superdelegates and stuff like that, where they can basically squash anything they don't want. And I guess I'm curious, like, what kind of anatomy the Labor Party has that allowed them to do something similar.
I couldn't tell you, to be honest, but it was the media as well.
Okay.
And of course, he was being accused of being an anti-Semite all the time, and even people that didn't know what that meant and couldn't understand it, they were still, oh yeah, I won't vote for him. People just, I don't know, really don't know.
No, I feel you. I mean, it's quite It's quite a thing, and it's the past kind of 7 years has really been like a roller coaster in so many ways. But I mean, you have definitely written a lot of songs because of it. I mean, you deal with these themes in your music a lot, which it's very cathartic for a lot of listeners. Myself being among them. Is that something you get a lot at shows?
Yeah, more and more, I think, especially since lockdown. And I kind of try not to be too specific with my writing, but
Mm-hmm.
because then it can mean more and it'll last longer in a way. But yeah, there's a specific song of mine, "Bar at the End of the World," and
Mm-hmm.
that was the first song that I wrote during lockdown because it was doing my head in, and I didn't know what else to do. That was the only thing I was good for at the time, was the line in the song. But several people have come up to me since, and they're like, "Oh, I had that played at my partner's funeral," and I'm like, obviously that wasn't what I wrote it about, but listening back to the lyrics, I can understand. So that not particularly that morbid, but I like the songs to have a meaning to people, and I like people to be able to put their own meanings to them.
Yeah, well, and I think like it is one of those songs. It's a very sincere song, and it's a very sweet song, and there is some open endedness to it, and then even some of your songs that are quite literal, I think, can be taken a couple different ways. One of my favorite songs of yours is a song called "Black Cat," because I have a black cat turning 17 in a couple weeks. And I love her dearly, so I really like connected with that in the literal sense. But there's also like so many metaphors going on in that song too that people can take it different ways.
Yeah, that one I did actually write about a black cat.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been out. I can't remember when I wrote it. Been out to a gig, and it had been rubbish and hardly anyone there, and I just wasn't feeling it. And I was really quite sad on the way home, and I got off the bus, walked up the road going towards my house, and this little black cat started following me. It's obviously immediately puts a smile on your face.
Yeah.
And so that was quite literally, or it started anyway, about a little black cat that I met.
Well, how did things end? Did you both just go your separate ways, or?
Yeah, I would have quite liked to take him home, but we already had two cats at home at the time, so I don't think they would have been very happy.
Understand? No, that's understandable. But yeah, the cat recognized a friendly companion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the, I think, coolest, trippiest things. I mean, I'm assuming you're a cat person since you got two of them, but I mean, it is one of the coolest, trippiest things in the world when a cat chooses you.
Absolutely, especially the black ones. I don't.
Yes.
They know something. I don't know what it is, but they definitely know.
I think they know, and I don't know either. But do you think that they know they have it a little harder?
I don't know. Possibly. They just. I don't know what they know, but they definitely know.
They know something. I feel like, because they typically are, and yeah, I try, to only. I mean, I love all cats, but I try to really only, like I try to only focus as far as adoption goes on black cats, because I know they have it harder. They are the last to get adopted. And it can all be traced back to a bunch of superstition that was going on, via one of the popes and in England, and that still exists to this day, which is like, it's ridiculously depressing. But I wonder if they know that, because they are typically like just incredibly affectionate.
I've got a few friends who have rescued black cats for purely that reason.
Mm-hmm. It's important. I mean, it's kind of sad. I mean, there's a cat rescue near my place, and I always love going there and stuff like that. And I can't, take in another cat right now because my cat's a senior, but like, I always see all the cats wanting to be adopted, and it's always the black ones that are there longest. and there's the most of them, and it does, like it does hurt your heart. Like you're just thinking,
Absolutely.
man, come on.
Want to take them all home.
I know. I really do. Like, I mean, I live in SoCal, so my place is very small. But yeah, like if I had the space, I'm like, I wish if I ever had a big place, I would just get a ranch for them all. Are your cats cool with you being in and out a bunch as a touring performer?
Yeah, well, we actually lost the second one at this. When was it?
Sorry.
Start this year. Yeah. But they were cool. They were always cool. But they didn't like to listen to me play. Like they'd sneak up into my room and they'd lounge out on the bed. As soon as I picked the guitar up, gone.
Sensitive to the sound.
I think they were just rude, to be honest.
When you write a song, do you just kind of pick up the guitar and just kind of, let the ideas flow, or are you pen to paper first, or what's kind of your process?
It can vary, but it's usually pen to paper. I've got a notes page on my phone that I just write random stuff down, then I'll go back to it a couple of weeks later. I'm like, what on earth was I on about there? But more often than not, they tend to steadily grow. Like I'll add a couple of lines here and there, and then all of a sudden there's a song a couple of months down the line. Yeah, I don't get enough time to sit and write. Everything else seems to always take precedence, and I need to make myself take the time to write. I'll get there.
Well, you put out a ton of music, so you're finding the time somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on. It's written. Working on a new album at the moment, which hopefully that'll be out early next year. And then I would like to take some time just to sit and write for a bit. So
I got to ask you about one of your covers as an Italian American who tries to keep close with my family in Italy, and I absolutely love your take on Bella Ciao. So what kind of what inspired you to take on that song?
I can't really remember. I'd seen a few people perform it live.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought, what a brilliant song. Just listening to people performing it, I think, I just thought, right, I've got to learn that. So then, obviously, I don't speak Italian, so that was a bit of a learning curve. But
I think you're. I mean, I'm not fluent by any means, but I do speak it, and I think you do it really well.
A couple of people have said that to me. I think it's because it sounds rubbish if you're doing it in a black country accent, so you do have to make an effort to put the proper accent on, shall we say?
All right. No, I assumed you spoke a little based on how you do that song, so take that for what it's worth. But I mean, I'm not fluent by any means, but I do. I at least I get to use it daily because I have some colleagues over in Italy, and I also have my family, and thanks to stuff like WhatsApp, it's a lot easier to keep in touch. So I do use it on a somewhat regular basis, and I also practice on. Do you guys have Duolingo in England?
Yes.
Okay.
I've never used it, but yeah.
I use it. I'm a daily Duolingo guy, so I do use it, but yeah. But so you just kind of heard it around. Did you hear it from other like kind of folky artists, or just?
I think the first time I heard it, it was somebody who was playing it at Rebellion Punk Festival in Blackpool on the acoustic stage, and it was amazing, and they kept changing the key of it. It kept going up and up and up. I was like, this is incredible. And then I'd heard a few more people play it. I thought, yeah. But everyone sings along to it, even though they have no idea what the words mean.
That is interesting. Well, when you hear some of the older renditions of it, even, I mean, not like the original, but some of the stuff you can find, people have sort of there's kind of pop variations of it. And that is interesting, when you know what the song's actually about. Where
that was kind of why, because I did the first bit all in Italian. And then second bit, I speed it up a bit and have the translations as well.
Yeah.
So I try and make people understand what it's about.
No, I love the way you do it. I mean, I really love your take on that song, and it is such a beautiful song, and it's a song that I actually kind of reconnected with because of your live album that you put out. Because I kind of it's a song I knew about, but you don't think about all the time, and then I heard your take on it, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I've kind of like just sort of had a very cool reconnection to that song, because we're talking about we're talking about countries that are going through some some interesting rough roads right now, and we can include Italy too. It's not just England and the U.S.
Sadly, still very applicable.
Yeah. Oh, I was there when Maloney got elected. Not for that reason. I wasn't like, oh, I go to countries on election day. But my cousin was getting married around that time. My cousin from Napoli, and so I was there, and election day happened to happen, and yeah, so I was there when she got elected, and no one in my family was in a good mood that day. There was sort of like a solemn little thing, and they didn't like bring it up much because I think they thought like it wouldn't be fun conversation for the American side, but I wanted to. I was like, tell me everything. What do you guys think? but yeah, so I wanted to get your take on that song. Have you ever performed in Italy?
No, I've only ever performed in the UK. Well, it seemed to be edging closer, and then the pandemic happened, and then Brexit happened, and so that's kind of been put on the back burner. It's definitely, yeah, I'd like to tour elsewhere. It'll happen at some point.
Well, how long have you been doing your thing, like in its current state? Like, I mean, I know you've been playing guitar since childhood, but how long have you been doing like this thing? I mean, I became cognizant of you in I guess 2021, but I didn't know like how long you had been around or anything like that.
I mean, I've been gigging for years, but since I left uni, so that'd be. One of my mates informed me the other day, which was terrifying. That was 6 years ago, which is very scary.
Time doesn't go slower, Jess. As someone who's a little bit older than you, I can tell you, it doesn't slow down. So buckle in. It'll be 12 years before you know it.
But yeah, pretty much. Well, that was what I was doing since before I left uni. But seriously, after so about 6 years ago.
Where was uni?
I went to uni at Aston in Birmingham.
Okay.
And I did maths.
Math?
Mm-hmm.
That's a solid.
I've not really used since.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, you gotta. I mean, there's a lot of accounting involved with being a touring performer. Like you got to factor in your costs and all that fun stuff. Do you have a favorite city to play?
Probably Nottingham. I mean, my favourite venue is Katie Fitzgerald's in Stourbridge, just down from me. But I really like playing in Nottingham. It's just a really vibrant place. There's loads going on, and everyone's always really up for a good night out of live music. So
really, and there's a lot of isn't there a lot of stuff going on right now with Sherwood Forest? Like they're trying to frack there or something like that?
Yeah, I think they've stopped it for the time. I'm not really well up on that, to be honest, but I think they've stopped it for the time being, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're trying to do it again. Okay.
It's and I'm not necessarily like super well read on it myself. In fact, my knowledge on the topic is limited to a Beans on Toast song. So yeah. if you know him, but I actually got to, I forget his first name, but I actually got to see him live in Manchester. Because my now wife, then girlfriend, and I were on vacation in England, and we went to Manchester for a night. And, you know, I mean, I just love all the music from there. So for me, it was like a big deal to like go to the Afflecks and stuff like that and do the like BBC Six walk and whatnot. And we walked by the Ritz and we looked at what was going on that night. Because I'm like, well, I just want to see the Ritz. I don't know if there'll be a show we'd want to go to or whatever, but I just want to see it, you know. And it just so happened that night was Beans on Toast and Skinny Lester. And I told him, I'm like, I was like, I listened to this guy. Like, I'm familiar with him. And you know, my wife was like, we got to get tickets. And I'm like, yes. And so we went, and the floor bounces there. Have you ever been to a show there?
I've not.
You haven't?
No.
Well, I'm sure you'll probably play there at some point. But
it's on the list. I'd like to.
It's such a cool space. It's one of my favorite spaces that I've ever been to, you know, just anywhere. And yeah, the floor does legit bounce. So like when you do the speed up on Bella Ciao, the floor will presumably bounce if everyone dances. So that'll be pretty great.
It's really weird with the O2 venues. It's like some of them are ace, and some of them, like the one in Birmingham, it's just like a box.
Really?
No soul. I absolutely hate the O2 Academy in Birmingham. I like the Institute though. That's a good venue. But yeah, some of them are just brilliant, and others not so much.
Do you do the Fringe festivals at all?
Not yet.
You know, okay.
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's cool. Well, right on. So, in closing, where do you want to direct people to go find your stuff?
I'm mostly active on Facebook. Jess Silk Music on there. And there's a link. I mean, I'm on all the socials, but that's the most active one. I've got Bandcamp page. And everything's all on all the usual places. You can find me, Spotify, Deezer, all of that lot.
If you were in a situation where you had one chance to play one song, one of yours, of course, and you got one song and you got to play it and that's it, what would you play?
Ooh, that's a difficult one because there's two, but probably If Home Is Where the Heart Is. That's one that I always finish with, and everyone seems to like that. I like it too, but yeah, Home Is Where the Heart Is.
I like it too. That's a great song. Well, Jess, thanks so much for doing this.
Oh, thanks for having me. I got round to it in the end. Been a busy month. I'm glad to be here.
All right, that was Jess Silk. Be sure to check out her music at jesssilk.bandcamp.com. Again, that's jesssilk.bandcamp.com. I recommend starting with the live album from Katie Fitzgerald's. I recommend starting with that one. It's a wonderful listen, but check out all of her stuff. You will not be sorry, I promise. Music for the 1000 podcast is provided by Andrew Saxena. Check out his podcast, the Baywatching Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. I said podcast a lot in that sentence. If you would, please leave us a 5-star review. And if you want to support this show on the sustainability end, you can do so at patreon.com/Ron Placone. For Give What You Can, Love What You get all kinds of perks. You get 1,000 episodes before they're released to the public. You get a bonus 1,000 podcast featuring Andrew and myself. And I'll make you a theme song. You can get all that for a Give What You Can level. So patreon.com/Ron Placone. So that was Jess Silk. We have 992 more episodes to go. Man, it's going fast. We're almost in double digits. See you next week. Hey guys, Ron Placone here. Take your own 1,000 challenge. No, you don't need to interview 1,000 people, although if you want to do that, go for it. Your 1,000 challenge can be whatever you want. Maybe you want to call a friend out of the blue once a week. Maybe you want to read a book every month. Maybe you want to start a different garden every season. I guess that might be dependent on where you live. Look, the point of the challenge is taking on an endeavor that enriches your life in some way, and it can be measured. And then, of course, you do it regularly. That's what 1,000 is doing for me, and hopefully for you too. The main reason for this podcast and every podcast I've ever done is to build community. So take your own challenge. Then Join our Facebook group. It's called 1000 What's Your Challenge? ? That's 1000 What's Your Challenge ? And post about what your 1000 challenge is and the progress you're making. All I ask is that people be encouraging of each other's challenges. This is personal and vulnerable, so be cool. There's enough negativity on social media. We don't need to add to it. For those of you who aren't on Facebook, hopefully in the future we'll be expanding to places like Discord, Reddit, but for now, we're starting on Facebook. And again, that Facebook group is called 1000 What's Your Challenge? See you there.